In the blinding, fluorescent haze of a Las Vegas casino, she's almost unrecognizable. Gone are the candy-colored wigs and the elaborate architectural stage costumes. The signature feline swagger, once a weapon of mass seduction, is now a coiled, simmering stillness. She's at a poker table, sunglasses perched on her nose, a hoodie pulled up, and a cigarette dangling from her lips. A paparazzo, hiding behind a potted palm, snaps a photo. The image, blurry and grainy, will soon leak to the world, and the headline will scream what everyone is already thinking. Doja Cat, what happened? How does a viral sensation, a Grammy winner, a pop culture monolith, become a ghost in a casino? How does a woman who once held the world in the palm of her hand, daring them to look away, end up hiding behind tinted lenses? This is not the story of a meteoric rise and a gentle decline. This is the story of a controlled explosion, a deliberate act of self-immolation performed on the world's largest stage. This is the story of Amala Dlamini, the artist the world knows as Doja Cat, a woman who didn't just play the game, she lit it on fire and walked away. The beginnings were, in many ways, an omen of the chaos to come. Amala was born in Los Angeles, but her roots were tangled and complex. Her father, Dumisani Dlamini, a South African actor, was largely absent from her life. Her mother, Deborah Sawyer, a Jewish-American painter, raised her in a series of unorthodox, often transient homes. One of them, a commune in the mountains of upstate New York, was a spiritual experiment she would later describe as kinda culty. This nomadic artistic upbringing was a double-edged sword. It fostered a unique, uninhibited creativity, a fearlessness to experiment and to flout convention. But it also bred a deep-seated restlessness, a sense of being perpetually unmoored, and a defiant streak that saw the world as something to be either conquered or mocked. She was a natural-born performer, a mimic, a provocateur. She spent hours on the internet, lost in the chaotic, unfiltered world of early YouTube and MySpace, absorbing the absurd, the ridiculous, and the sublime. These digital spaces were her church, her school, her stage. They were a safe haven where she could be anyone she wanted to be, a laboratory for the persona she was unknowingly building. Her first real taste of internet infamy came not from a song, but from a meme. In 2018, she released the now legendary track, Mooo, a playful lo-fi anthem where she, wearing a cow costume, sang about being a cow. The video was a perfect storm of irony, absurdity, and genuine catchiness. It was an instant viral hit, a pop culture thunderclap. Suddenly, a relatively unknown artist from the digital fringes was everywhere. She was on every timeline, every feed, every morning show. She was the one-hit wonder who was maybe, just maybe, more than a one-off joke. But even then, in the midst of her breakout moment, a journalist noted the subtle defiance in her eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing, they wrote. She wasn't the butt of the joke. She was the joke's creator, the grandmaster of its punchline. She was a satirist at heart, using the very medium that elevated her to poke fun at the absurdity of fame itself. But what if the joke was on her? As her star ascended, the pop music machine took hold. Say So became a cultural phenomenon, a breezy, disco-infused earworm that dominated the airwaves. She was a master of the TikTok era, a chameleon who could effortlessly shift from bubblegum pop princess to gritty, razor-sharp rapper. She collaborated with the biggest names in the business, won a Grammy, and became a red carpet darling known for her avant-garde, boundary-pushing fashion. To the world, she was a creative genius, a visionary who could do no wrong. But behind the scenes, a different narrative was unfolding. As her fame grew, so did her perceived sense of entitlement, her disdain for the very people who had propelled her to the top. An early collaborator, who wished to remain anonymous, once said, "She was a force of nature, but the weather was always changing. One day she'd be brilliant and collaborative. The next, she'd be cold, distant, and impossible to work with. It was like walking on eggshells." This duality, this mercurial nature, was a core part of her identity. She was both a product of the internet and its ultimate troll. The real trouble, the seismic shift from beloved icon to controversial pariah, began not with a single event, but a slow, deliberate erosion of goodwill. It started with a series of controversial comments online, a pattern of lashing out at fans, and a seemingly self-destructive need to dismantle her own image. One of the most infamous incidents came in 2022 when, after a string of canceled festival appearances, she engaged in a heated exchange with fans on Twitter. When a fan expressed disappointment about a canceled show in Paraguay, she fired back, "I don't need to apologize for anything." The outrage was immediate and fierce. The hashtag had Doja Cat Ice Over Party trended for days. In a moment of unfiltered rage, she doubled down, telling her fans she was quitting music. It was a digital suicide, a calculated act of defiance against the very audience that had made her a star. The world watched, stunned, as she systematically dismantled the empire she had so carefully built. It was a spectacle of a celebrity actively choosing to burn it all down. The backlash, however, went far beyond a few angry tweets. The internet, a place she once controlled, turned on her with a vengeance. Old, problematic content resurfaced. A song she had written in her youth with a controversial title, a series of questionable online conversations, and accusations of her being part of an alt-right chat room all came to light. The narrative shifted from misunderstood artist to unapologetic provocateur. The media, ever hungry for a scandal, feasted on the chaos. Critics began to re-examine her entire career through this new, darker lens. "We mistook her sarcasm for genius," one journalist wrote. But what if it was always just cruelty? This was the point of no return. She wasn't just a pop star anymore. She was a case study in celebrity self-destruction, a cautionary tale of a star who flew too close to the sun and actively chose to get burned. But amidst the firestorm, there were glimmers of something more complex. In rare, unfiltered interviews, she would occasionally drop her guard, offering a glimpse into the person behind the persona. She spoke of her deep-seated anxiety, her struggle with the overwhelming pressure of fame, and a feeling of being trapped by the very image she had created. A journalist who spent a day with her for a magazine profile noted, "There were moments where the bravado would fall away, and you could see the fear in her eyes. It was a quiet, almost fragile sadness, like a child lost in a massive, confusing amusement park." She once confessed in a now-deleted post that she felt like a prisoner of her own art, unable to escape the caricature she had become. Was this a genuine moment of vulnerability, or another carefully orchestrated performance? With Doja Cat, the line was always blurred, the truth always shifting. The final act of her self-reinvention, or perhaps her final descent into chaos, was her deliberate rejection of pop music itself. After a series of public meltdowns, she announced her next album would be purely rap, a deliberate, aggressive shift away from the genre that made her a household name. She shaved her head and eyebrows, a visual symbol of her shedding the old, familiar skin. She embraced a darker, more abrasive aesthetic, transforming herself from a vibrant pop star into a menacing, almost alien-like figure. The music itself was a stark departure, a bold and often polarizing statement. It was a middle finger to the very industry that had crowned her. Some critics lauded her for her artistic integrity, for choosing to follow her own muse no matter the cost. Others saw it as a desperate attempt to stay relevant, a calculated provocation. Her fans were left divided, bewildered, and often hurt. She had taken their love, their adoration, and seemed to have thrown it back in their faces, mocking them for ever having believed in the image she presented. So, what is the legacy of Doja Cat? Is she a cult icon? A misunderstood genius who refused to be put in a box? Or is she a cautionary tale, a symbol of a generation of artists who believe their talent gives them a pass to be cruel, reckless, and unapologetic? She is all of these things, and none of them. She is a Rorschach test for the modern celebrity, an artist who forces you to confront your own expectations of what a star should be. She didn't want to be a role model, a fan favorite, or a safe bet. She wanted to be a problem. She wanted to be a question without an answer. She wanted to be chaos. And in the end, she got exactly what she wanted. The final image, the one that lingers, is not of a stadium filled with screaming fans or a red carpet lined with flashing lights. It's a single, grainy photograph of a woman in a hoodie and sunglasses, alone at a poker table in a city built on illusions. She's a ghost in a machine, a phantom of the pop world she once so brilliantly inhabited. And in her silence, in her quiet defiance, there's a chilling irony. She was the one who always had the last word, the last laugh. But in the end, her greatest masterpiece wasn't a song, a video, or an album. It was herself, a meticulously constructed and then deliberately demolished work of art. A beautiful, brilliant, and ultimately heartbreaking self-portrait of a star who was determined to be remembered, not for her light, but for the glorious, magnificent inferno she left behind.